I'd like to welcome everybody to October 25th board meeting. Today, I'd like to give hello to our board members. Thank everybody for coming out, our community, our stakeholders, and staff. Time I'd like to call it time 10:07. That we just do the roll.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman. Director Emister. Director Odell. Director Lockett.
I'm here.
Thank you. Director Lockett. Director Robinson.
Here.
Thank you. Director Leggett. Director Leggett. Director Adams.
Here.
Director Taylor.
Here.
Director Stone.
Present.
And Chairman Cody. Chairman, thank you. Have a motion. You have a form on the board. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I'd like to get the approval of today's agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. And Chairman, I'll do a roll call vote. Okay. Director Emister. Director Lockett. Director Odell. Director Odell.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Director Robinson.
Yes.
Director Leggett. Director Adams.
Yes.
Director Taylor.
Yes.
Director Stone.
Yes.
Chairman Cody. Chairman, motion passed for the adoption of today's regular agenda.
Thank you. See, today we have some presentations for our review of draft 2023 state legislation. Today we have Mr. Jack Henson. We welcome him. And second, we will have a service modification pre-implementation update. Mr. Dumas and Dr. Lynch. So this time we'd like to go into our presentation.
This is actually going to be Mr. Houston and Mr. Backer. The three of us have been collaborating on our legislative agenda for this year, so.
Thank
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And as you know, and I don't know if I need to be on camera or among.
Yes, you're fine.
Okay, I'm
Yes,
good.
sir.
You know, I'm a politician. I always want to make sure the lens is right. I think that's good. We do have federal side and state side, but the three of us have been coordinating on all of it to make sure that we're maximizing our collective muscle, but also because there's things in the state law that I want to be able to be helpful with. So what we might want to do is let me yield the mic first so you can talk about that, and then I'll kind of give you a review of the federal stuff, if that's okay.
Sure, be glad to. And thank you, Mike Thacker, legislative liaison for CAT. Work very closely with Jack and his team out of Washington, CEO Domestic. We've been looking at opportunities that would present themselves or opportunities that we can create as we move forward into the 2023 legislative session. In the past, we had looked at a couple of things, most notably trying to modify the existing transit legislation, transit funding legislation that allows a transit special purpose local option sales tax, but limits that to 2 counties unless you were in the metro Atlanta area where a single county can do that. This was our concept to begin with 5 years ago or more, and was incorporated into the bigger transportation legislation that kind of restructured how transportation was going to be handled. But basically, there has not been much interest or traction in being able to achieve that, even though the language was in the legislation that was pending for the last 2 years. But the fact is, we're somewhat out of sync in terms of being able to move forward with that in terms of our planning efforts and in terms of the fact that we have T-Splosh that is now moving forward, that is just a general T-Splosh and not one that would be dedicated to transit funding. So we backed up and looked at what the potentials are, but more importantly, what are our needs? And our needs basically are for funding. Funding at the middle, at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. So in looking at what the possibilities are, we have looked at some legislation that was passed in the past several years, and legislation that was made possible through passage of a constitutional amendment that was on the ballot in 2020 that allowed for the creation of true trust funds. And that legislation created the Georgia Transit Trust Fund, the Georgia Transportation Trust Fund, and those are the two new funding pots that actually are out there. During the 21 session of the General Assembly, the Georgia Transportation Trust Fund was created. It did not create new money, but what it did, it took the $5 fee, the hotel motel transportation fee that is collected for every overnight stay in a hotel or motel or in STVRs as well, and sequesters that in a fund that is dedicated to transportation uses. The legislation that created the fund allowed up to 10% of this to be used exclusively for transit. Now, 10% sounds like a nice number, but you have to do the math. This $5 fee generates about $200 million a year. So $200 million is a big number. $20 million is not a big number, but that is dedicated to transit and must be allocated to that purpose. The good news about that is that that fund can be used to fund, quote, all services necessary to provide access to these transportation facilities. So what this means is you can use this for the Holy Grail operations and maintenance, which is very, very important. The key is, how do you get to that money? How much of that money can you actually access? The second is the Georgia Transit Trust Fund. It was created several years ago, a 50-cent ride share fee for Uber, Lyft, taxi cabs, etc. That fund now goes into the Georgia Transit Trust Fund and can be used for transit capital projects to establish, enhance, maintain, and improve transit. So you see there is a disconnect there between operations maintenance and capital. But this is a much larger fund. This is not a much larger fund, but it is a nice amount of money. Last year, first year, I think it raised around $16 million. You have to keep in mind, this was during COVID. This budget year, the budget number is $18.5 million. All of that money went to the ATL to fund a wide variety of projects. We think that that fund actually will exceed $20 million this year and will grow in the next year as well. Keep in mind, $20 million of 50 cents per ride is about 40 million Uber Lyft rides, mostly generated in Metro Atlanta, but a significant amount of those rides are generated in Athens and Savannah as well. So the state is working on a LMIG type style of distribution to come up with a formula that will basically create what we're looking for is a sustainable full source of funding for transit to move forward. Yes.
One quick thing I want to add to that, and it's reflected in the slide that you're seeing now, directors, is that although there is a LMIG style program under development for distribution of those funds, these funds typically to date, as Mike indicated, have been retained in the Atlanta region, and have not seen their way out into other parts of the state, even though right-hand fees are collected statewide. Currently, the funding model is really very much resident with the speaker. And so one of the things, both for the Georgia Transportation Trust Fund that Mike mentioned earlier, as well as for this Georgia Transit Trust Fund, working very closely with our local delegation as to how we approach both of those things. And I think it's really clear on the Transit Trust Fund that we're going to need to work both avenues of access, as well as creating some avenues of access for that. So, but we've also had very strong partnerships with Georgia DOT already. And one of the things that I would mention related to item 2 as well is that we have a meeting with the Georgia DOT Commissioner and with Ann Purcell, our Georgia DOT board member, as well as Mike and Jack and myself, Stephanie Stevington as well. We'll be going to Atlanta in November to meet with them about these funding opportunities at the GDOT level. So,
And I will very quickly mention that this is not something that necessarily is going to move forward out of a single piece of legislation, which are the kinds of things that we normally are pursuing. This will be part of the appropriations process that starts the week of January the 9th and literally runs through the last couple of days of the session. So there are opportunities for a couple of bites of at the apple. One is during the supplemental appropriations, where they will go in to determine how they are going to apply excess funds that are there. I will put in a caveat that there is probably going to be a fairly large hole in the roads and bridges funding that GDOT has, because the gas tax has been suspended for a significant amount of time. So some of that $6 billion surplus that we've been hearing about probably is going to go to that, but there's a lot of other dollars that are going to be floating around and a lot of needs as well. But we will be on this working with all of our resources, not only the legislative delegation, but the leadership in the House and the Senate, the appropriators, the Transportation Subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee, and anybody who's here we can get an hand, we can get this right down. Yes, we agree that this funding is something that makes sense to make available to Chatham Transit. The last 2 items are items that are possible as well. These are state bonds. In 2015, Governor Deal made available, it started out as $100 million, but because of Hurricane Maria, it got cut down to $75 million for the Go Transit program. This was unique in that it was a Georgia-specific rules and regulations developed by GDOT and CERTA. And this is the money that made it possible for us to buy a number of buses and electric buses as well. We will be looking to the opportunity to create something like this for a variety of the projects that are stated there. Transit projects, bonds, future years, job centers, economic expansion activities. Let's think about Hyundai, which is having their groundbreaking, their actual groundbreaking right now. There will be a huge event at the Inmark Center where they will be waving the Hyundai flag. That Hyundai flag is going to cover a very large footprint. We have already done a study that shows that there is a need for regional shuttle transportation that goes from Metter down to Brunswick over to Hilton Head to get workers to and from those jobs, not just construction workers, but permanent employees. And the employment footprint, even though it's about 8,000 for Hyundai, is anywhere between 10,000 additional employees and maybe as many as 20,000, depending upon what the ancillary developments are. The final one up there that we can look at as well is Georgia Transportation Infrastructure Bank. This This makes available loans and grants for transportation projects, including transit. These would have to be capital, but on the loan side, you can get up to $2 million for a project with pretty generous terms on payback, or up to $1 million for a project.
One thing to clarify on that, so right now, the request that we indicate we want to make up there is currently the GTIP program is limited to only motor fuel tax eligible projects. It did recently fund a quote unquote transit project last year, but it was actually not the transit project. It was a bus rapid transit project, and it funded the roadway component of the bus rapid transit project. So again, it had to be motor fuel tax eligible. What we want to request is that they expand the eligibility to include transit projects, but not give a specific set aside. So that way the control and the direction of the GTO program is still retained as it currently is by Serta Greta ATL, which is who handles that program. But it expands the eligibility without having to make specific commitments. And we think that's really important because that gives us another revenue stream that can be really important in capital projects.
So simply put, these are the 4 legs of the table that Jack, myself, and Faye will be dancing on during the upcoming legislative period. That telling me or the computer? To access funds, which we sorely need, and to expand the flexibility of how transit can actually utilize those funds.
These are really important, and I want to also underscore these, developing these as our 4 focus areas for the upcoming General Assembly came specifically out of our budget process. We are tying everything back always into our budget process and our fiscal integrity. And you may recall when you got your budget books that at the back of the budget book, we had a piece of work done by InfoStrategies that looked at all of the different funding sources and aligned them with our current budget and current needs. And it was using that tool that enabled us to prioritize these as a part of our state legislative agenda, and then work with the expertise that we have through Mr. Backer and through Jack and Pat Sparbox to develop this agenda. And like I said, we've already been doing a lot of the legwork. What we wanted to do today, in addition based upon where our partners in the community, it's so much more powerful when you have a Chatham County agenda that you're taking to the state legislature. When the city, the county, the major influencers, chamber, and the tourism leadership, and all those kind of folks we're all aligned, supporting each other with our state legislative needs. And so we've all been having sort of incidental or sidebar conversations to this end. So what we would like to do subsequent to bringing this forward for your adoption in November, is between now and the November meeting, is to be socializing this with those partnership groups so that alignment of a comprehensive legislative agenda for our area can be realized.
To simply encapsulate what our focus is, we're going to be seeking sustainable state funding for intermodal transportation services to businesses, industries, and citizens, residents, and tourists. Thank you.
I was going to kind of do some stuff on the federal end that was not directly related to this.
Absolutely.
So, no other questions for Mr. Backer here?
If we could like maybe get all the.
Okay, all right. Okay, I just want to review what we've been doing in Washington, D.C. When I first had the honor of being hired by CAT Priscilla and Helen made it abundantly clear that I better be a profit center. Dr. Robinson, who was a longtime friend, she made sure of it. Everybody that I've ever met with on the CAP board has said, you guys better be bringing in money and telling us what you're getting. And then Faye gets hired and says, you need to bring in more money. So I just want to make sure that we are under our key, Mr. Chairman, so that you know that we are working on your behalf. And this is your team. You know, Carolyn Maderas, who worked in DOT circles in Washington, D.C. I just want to make sure you know, she did work at DOT. Rodney Slater, you may remember, was Clinton's Secretary of Transportation, and he hops in as needed. And then former House Chairman of Transportation Committee, Bill Schuster, works with us, not on a day-to-day basis, but he's there if we need to get some doors open. And then Karen Marie Irvin, who probably lives and breathes cat all day long and doesn't quite get the visibility that you might be used to on it. But I wanted to bring in, and I'm going to jump to the next slide for a second, because I want you to know the bottom line of what we have worked on and been able to be part of your team was over $16 million that we brought into CAT. And we say part of your team because we work regularly with you and your staff in terms of making sure that we're answering all the right questions and probably driving your staff crazy half the time on, no, this application has to change here. But that's a number that you might not focus on all the time, but we focus on what are we bringing into CAT. And then just to go back, this year, right now, pending application for ferry, $3.2 million, which is up to speed. But this is in addition to Senator Warnock's $1.8 million that he has put in an earmark, and that is in the bill right now. We believe it's going to stay in the bill. He actually is getting it out of a different source of revenue, which is a very clever approach. And then, and Senator Ossoff also has put in 2.2 or 2.5 for paratransit facility, and that is, both senators are supporting that. So we feel them very successful about it. In August, $5.4 million for no emission bus grants. And, you know, again, on all of these, we work behind the scenes with CAT to make it happen. And again, it is a team. Nobody ever scores a touchdown without somebody blocking it. So we're all in there blocking and doing things. Last year, the persistent poverty grant, and then the route planning grant, which was something that Faye was really keen on very early on. I think our very first meeting, she was asking about that. And then the ferry from the past that we all have been working on trying to get more money for the ferry. And, you know, the very first ferry was an earmark, which I got when the late chairman of the House Transportation Committee, Tom Triplett, was on the DOT board and started talking to us about this concept of getting a ferry. Boy, I love it when I see all the tourists just crowding onto those things. But these are some of the highlights over the years, and so we could get into any of these if you want, but just wanted to show that we do make sure that we're tracking this and make sure that we are where you need to be. Faye has been very aggressive. Stephanie stays on us as well to make sure that we're looking at things. You guys hear things we don't hear sometimes, so we all want to swap notes as much as possible. But there are other things that we wanted to point out. There was some money that Federal Highway hadn't released to you guys that we were able to get several years ago, and that's just kind of going in there behind the scenes using our lawyers and saying, look, hey, you know you owe them this money. And then we found at one time there were some earmarks that had not been funded, not from CAT, but from other Georgia transportation projects. And we made a run after that, dormant earmarks. So very quickly, Family, everybody has a link to this, right?
Not to this presentation slide, but I will send it out.
we'll send it to Beverly so everybody can get a link.
Yes, sir.
And so I just wanted to say that's the federal report for right now. In terms of where we are, as you probably know, Congress is out. They will reconvene on the 14th of November. During this time period, there's a lull, but the staff is talking about issues, trying to get the appropriations bill done. The appropriation bill will probably be one of these Christmas Eve specials, but the Democrat and the Republican chair of the Senate Transportation Committees are retiring, and they want to get a bill done. Rosa DeLauro, the House chairwoman, is a close friend of mine. I talked to her about 2 weeks ago. She wants to get a bill done, so we feel like there will be a bill in December, and that sounds like one of y'all ought to do it. That's what you're supposed to be doing, but sometimes Washington doesn't do what they're supposed to do. But making sure that we get the appropriation bill across the finish line is a high priority because you want to. And that's a quickie, Mike, I don't know if I'd love to.
No, you're good.
One other thing I would mention that you're working with us on right now is there's a SMART grant application that's due in approximately
Yes.
a month. It's a really interesting grant. I've mentioned it in some of our previous meetings because it is a stage 1, stage 2 grant. Stage 1 is for a sort of a pilot, if you will, or a demonstration, and then stage 2 is implementation. But it's 100% funded. We have a really strong partnership together with Georgia Department of Transportation. We had a breakfast meeting with them this morning to talk about that. Squire Tech Boss is helping us on this one already. And we're working with Georgia Tech and a particular program that they have on technology and equity in transit and sustainability that we are partnering together to go after this particular application. Really successful for us, and what we're aiming it towards is building out the technology components to deliver micro transit zones along with our master transit plan and fixed route improvements that will come out. Really exciting, like forward-reaching opportunity for us.
And I think also you've been visionary in terms of low emissions and no emission buses and ferries. As you may know, California, I think the year 2030 has said no more fossil fuel cars can be sold there. So in total, about 11 states are going to do it, but California is such a market for Detroit that once they say it's going to be EVs from here on out, the rest of the country is going to be much higher.
One of the things too that we put in the T-Plus proposal for us is electrification infrastructure, charging infrastructure. We'll go back really quickly to make sure, see if the board has any questions. I want to direct you particularly back to our state legislative agenda. This is so critically important for us that we begin to create new recurring funding streams that can help to support our budget. I think it is an absolute, it's just essential that we expand our revenue portfolio and expand beyond the more traditional funding sources that we rely upon. And we're so appreciative of all the partnerships with county and city and so forth. But we've really got to also make sure that we're growing that revenue base in a reliable way. And particularly those first two funding sources that are on there, the Georgia Transit Trust Fund and the Georgia Transportation Trust Fund are ways to do that, particularly on that, the Transit Trust Fund, the right hand piece. And then the others can be a little more opportunistic in terms of the approach. Really important that we go after this strong partnership. So do any of the board members have any questions about our proposed 2023 state legislative agenda?
I have a quick question,
Yes, ma'am.
and it may have already been brought up, and I can hear you most of the time, but it kind of fades in and out. So in the 2023 state legislative agenda, how realistic are these 4 items for passing, Mike?
I think that they are realistic. I think we have our working on getting support from GDOT. I think we have a good story to tell. I think one of the items that there is going to be intense focus on is going to be the impacts that are going to be coming to this community and other communities in about the 5-county area from Monday. And in order to, let's just take one item, in order to provide the kinds of transportation that is going to be necessary for these employees, either on the construction side or on the permanent worker side, that employment footprint is going to be within a 60-minute to an hour radius drive from that plant in Bryan. There is a need for providing that service. CAT is uniquely positioned because we can enter into IGAs with other governmental entities to provide this service, or with private business to provide this service. And the local governments, the county governments outside of Chatham do not want to assume any responsibility for what we are here for providing that kind of service. They're overwhelmed with the kinds of things that they have to provide, including trying to make sure that there's housing available. So that is kind of one column that we will be working on. The second one that we're going to be working on is going to be the water ferries. And you have to look back to the establishment of the Maritime Trade Center, which was built years and years ago. And why did the water ferries exist? The water ferries exist to get the conventioneers over to Hudson Island and back. Now, that has changed over the years so that we have conventioneers, we have workers who are using it for transport, and we have tourists who are taking the best free ride you can get anywhere on the eastern coast to get a view of the city from the water. The convention center is now the Savannah Convention Center, part of the World Congress Center. The convention center needs another $10 to $15 million in bond funds to provide tables, chairs, plates, all of the kind of ancillary things that they need to have to make that work. Well, guess what? The Peck Water Ferry exists as part of that operation. And so one of the things we're going to be looking to is to stress that the water ferry was established to serve that facility and the developments over there. This ferry system is getting ready to expand and will expand into the future, and the funding needs to come from somewhere for that. And so the logical argument, at least we think, to GDOT and to the governor's office is that there needs to be some bond funding in the bond package to help pay for the expansion of the water ferry service system that basically serves as convention trade. So that's kind of a look inside the tent on some of the arguments and discussions that we will be developing with folks from the governor's office, governor's staff, GDOT, anybody that'll pause long enough for us to do a 20-second elevator spiel on what we need and why. That's where we're going to be, and that's how we're going to be moving forward.
Director.
So I think we have a high opportunity to succeed.
Director Stone, one other thing to add to that is those first two, I want to make sure you can hear me. The Georgia Transportation Trust Fund and the ride hail fees, the Transit Trust Fund, we have real and significant opportunities there.
Okay.
On the operations side, the other on the capital side. We just got to work that really effectively and aggressively, and we've got to do it in partnership with all of our local partners so that what they're hearing up in Atlanta is one voice of what's important in this area. Those are really, I think, actually very, very doable. The other two are ones, one is would still be an opportunistic, the one, the GTIL would be a competitive type thing. And the Go Transit bonds, they only do those kind of when it really has to be hinged to an economic development opportunity. But I think Mike just made the case that we may really have a very interesting play there in that space, tying it back to Hyundai and creating a community.
Right. So what can we as board members do to help?
When we request and make a specific request to the legislators, we would ask that you contact not only our legislative delegation, but members of the leadership, members of committees, committee chairs, et cetera, and urge them to support. And one of the key points there will be the Transportation Subcommittee of the House and Senate Appropriations Committees that generally are not the transportation committees in the House and Senate. Those are where some of these decisions start to be made initially, but this is not a one call that's all exercise, because these numbers bounce back and forth, as Jack
Right.
well knows, as the bills work through the process and back and forth. So this will be something that we will be intimately engaged in until literally
Join the meeting.
hours of the session.
Okay, thank you.
And we will provide you precise language on what to ask as well.
The other thing, Helen, it might have been mine. If you bump into a state representative, state senator right now, you can always chat it up and just say more to come. But I think kind of preparing them, you can't prepare them early. I know you see a lot of people in your day-to-day courses, so it's, right.
Okay.
Are there other board members that still have questions?
No, don't come in
I just wanted to give you a quick update. The service mod changes, let's see if we can get the presentations. The service mod changes that we'll discuss with you in detail at the last meeting and meeting prior to, that nothing has changed since what we presented to you recently in governance. So we are continuing to track on those changes. Let's go to the next slide. What is important and is very directly related to, next slide, please. Very directly related to what you all asked of us is the communication around this. The door hangers that we mentioned to you have been ordered. I think I mentioned to you in Snapshot last week, they're taking a little bit longer to print. We're doing specific outreach on Route 29, which is also the route that is being worked on with the DOT expansion. Flyers have been posted on the buses, so we gave them out on the buses. I know that was a specific suggestion of one of the directors, and we posted at the top 20 bus shelters. Top 20 ridership bus shelters. On Thursday, there will be a press conference concerning the DOT expansion and our temporary service modification with Chairman Cody, with the mayor, and with Chairman Ellis. There's an outreach opportunity on Friday, October 28th. It's a part of our birthday celebration at the ITC platform, where we will be there in force to discuss with our customers about the temporary service modifications, and the operators have selected their chosen bids for the new schedule. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Dumas for any other comments or questions on any of that.
Good morning, everyone. I don't have any additional information, but Mr. Maxwell said those are the updates from the previous meeting that we had, the governance meeting. And so we're putting information out. In fact, communication and marketing is working on printing schedule information that should be going out, if not today, tomorrow, so that the public will be able to see the actual ride time that they can expect to catch our fixed route buses in the upcoming service change that will take place on the 31st of this month, next Monday.
Yeah.
Dr. Meany, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Get all my stuff for next time.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you for all those perfect, from Ms. Jack Henson and Mike Becker and Mr. Lewis and Dr. Next, we have, going to our consent action items. We get a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Chairman, I'll do a roll call vote. Director Emister,
Yeah.
Director Stone,
Yes.
Director Odell. Director Odell, not present for the vote. Director Adams,
Yes.
Director Lockett,
Yes.
Director Robinson,
Yes.
Director Leggett,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Chairman Cody.
Yes.
Motion passed, Chairman. Thank
I
you.
was a yes. I couldn't get my mic on.
Thank you, Director Odell.
If I may, huge kudos to you and the staff and to everybody over at Director City for accomplishing that. That's pretty major.
In progress, a lot.
It has.
Implementation is all it's.
Yes, I'm excited to see that move through, I guess, the first finish line. And that's supposed to turn on.
Probably right after the first of the year, we're working through the GDOT permitting and GDOT right away. Garden City is actually taking the lead on that. So as soon as that GDOT permitting activity is complete, we're ready to actually open as construct.
Wow, that's great.
Have on our operating reserve fund deposit. The motion in the second. You want to ask? You have any questions? Right. We'll get a motion in the second on operating reserve fund deposit.
Okay, and you open the floor for discussion, Chairman?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I'm having a little difficulties hearing, what are we about to discuss, please?
Operating reserve fund budget. We spoke on it last week in the governance committee. Transfer of funds.
Dr. Robinson, this is where we are going to proceed with a $3.8 million deposit to that Georgia Fund One investment account. And you may recall, we designated specific purposes for what that reserve funding will be allocated for. Ms. Cutter can also provide the detail of that again as needed.
That's not necessary. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Right, we have a motion in a second.
We have a motion and a second from Director Emister and Director Adams. Chairman, would you like for me to do a roll call vote?
Yes.
Okay, Director Emister,
Yeah.
Director Stone,
Yes.
Director Odell,
Yes.
Director Adams,
Yes.
Director Lockett,
Yes.
Director Robinson,
Yes.
Director Leggett,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
and Chairman Cody.
Yes.
Motion passed, Chairman.
Thank you. Next, we have a assignment agreement with Academy to use the local 1324 proposed salary increases bonus. Get a motion in the second on that also.
Okay.
We do a discussion on this issue.
Oh, now, again, are we talking about the proposed side letter agreement?
Yeah, the salary increase. You spoke on it last.
Yeah, but is that what we are? Are we on the agenda items? And are we talking about the human resource proposed salary increase and thank Bonus?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I do have a couple of questions on that particular one. Is that the time for me to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have one question when it relates to the on-time incentive thank you bonus for current operators and drivers. And the first item says $200 fixed route senior operators. Are there other operators other than senior operators that are not getting this bonus?
Let Dr. Beatty answer that.
Yeah, the provision, what we're trying to do is that anybody under $40 on a fixed watch side, so you have folks that are making $17, and since we're gonna bump that up to 20, the senior operators are not getting anything. They are already up to the top pay. So we're giving them that 200, so that they all feel like they got something. That was the reason.
So am I to understand that all fixed operators are being put at $20 an hour? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, those that are making below $20.
Right, right.
We have some drivers that are making 17, 18, all those gonna be bumped up to 20 an hour. So the fixed route, the senior operators are already on top pay, so the one-time thank you, so that they also feel like they're not being left out.
So if you raise the salary to $20 an hour, they do not get the $200 thank you bonus.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
correct.
That's
Correct.
correct.
Okay. And then my last question, I think, is when I look at the financial impact, and I look at the word primarily cover the estimated costs, I read in that a concern, and I know that on the second page, they talk about, negotiations and that kind of stuff. So my question is that currently we are going to go back to the table with the union to negotiate. Is there a particular, and maybe if we can't answer it here, we can answer maybe in another setting, but based on the budget concern, and will be primarily covered, the estimated costs, how impactful do we think the outcome of the negotiation will do to our budget?
Director Robinson, until the negotiations have been completed, that's still a question mark.
Right.
We're starting all over from the beginning with negotiations. So until that process is completed, there's still a question mark as to the impact on the budget.
So I guess, so they're going to be looking for more than just $20 an hour for fixed and more than $15 for paratransit. Is that pretty accurate?
Well,
I don't think we know that. We don't know that at this point, Director Robinson, because we really haven't started those negotiations yet. And this was intended to be a side agreement to get some relief on that in their pockets sooner. And I just think that, as Ms. Cutter just stated, I think the details of the negotiation and their expectations are unknown at this point.
Because I'm just a little bit concerned about the overall budget impact.
I think that what I would comment in this manner. I do think that that this was an essential impact to have, an essential increase to make. Recently, we have been looking very carefully at what's going on in the market around us, both with not just in our immediate market, although we certainly looked at what's occurring there as well, but also what's happening statewide with bus operators. And it was clear to us that we were not competitive and needed to take this action in order to be competitive, especially in the, we're keenly focused on the need for hiring is the way that we bring service reliability back. We're bringing service reliability back now by matching the service we're providing to the operator base, but our commitment is to grow that operator base back so we can grow the service back. And so the notion of being competitive in the market that we're in is absolutely essential. And Ms. Cutter and I both keep a keen eye on all the financials. And this goes back also, it all kind of starts weaving together. This also goes back to what we talked about earlier around the legislative agenda and the revenue sources and really seeking out those operational funding sources and so forth. We're going to have to be as aggressive as we have ever been in that space. And I think we can be very successful doing that, but we share some of the concerns that you have, and we are keenly focused on that. We also believe that if we don't take these kinds of actions, we're not going to remain competitive in the workforce with recruiting new operators.
Yeah, yes, I do agree. And I just, I'm hoping that we can get these negotiations all finished in a way that's, pleasing to everybody concerned, and that we can really take a hard, fast look at the budget impact and what we need to do to make sure that, we stay liquid, we stay in the black.
Absolutely, Director. I can assure you that that is exactly what we will do.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Everyone that you want to bump up, is there going to be still a probationary period before they get to that? Or when everybody comes on, everybody goes?
Come on.
Do we have any more questions? Thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay, Chairman, you'd like for me to do a roll call vote if you're closing the floor for discussion. Director Emerson,
Yes.
Director Stone,
Yes, I'm sorry.
no problem, thank you. Director Odell, Director Odell,
Yes.
Director Adams,
Yes.
Director Lockett,
Yes.
Director Robinson,
Yes.
Director Leggett,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
and Chairman Cody.
Yes.
Chairman, motion passed.
Thank you. Next, we'll be moving to our executive director's report and goes to our CEO, Mr. Basketball.
Thank you, Chair. First thing I wanted to mention in the executive director's report from a previous meeting, we appreciate Director Odell's suggestion to advance our legislative government software for an app tool that will support collaboration related to meeting materials. We wanted to give a quick update on where we are and following through on that. We currently are using IPM2, which has been in place prior to 2014. So opportunities to upgrade and advance our use of the software is definitely warranted. We are currently scheduling demos. To date, we've received demos from 2 different software providers. And key scope areas we are seeking are systems that foster collaboration, integration across web providers that's frictionless, one-stop, and personalized for CAT, our board members, and our customers, and one that continues to provide transparent government. We know that is a foundational commitment for us. So I just wanted to be sure to give you an update on the board software. Also, we've got a comms report, and I'd like to ask Ariel Johnson to quickly review that with the board.
Thank you, CEO Maximo, good morning, Chairman. Just wanted to give another update from our last meeting on last Tuesday. We have want to start with the Pat Track update. I know Dr. Evans was asking about this, and we wanted to put this in the presentation about the Pat Track app and how we are moving along with it. So far, we have more than 1,100 downloads between Apple and Google, and you see the breakdown of where those numbers are coming from. So the Cat Tracker app is really moving smoothly, and we are still pushing for more Cat Tracker app downloads. So that's that flyer that posts on the bus or at the shelters, at the ICC, it has Cat Tracker app on with the QR code that takes people directly to the Apple app or Google app. To download. You just want to quickly, I'm sorry.
Will that slide eventually sort of be like a graph, kind of where it's going?
Yeah, we will definitely make it to a graph and we'll be able to break down more of like who's downloading, price, like all that.
That's one thing, but that's great.
So just a quick reminder that we are at our 35th anniversary celebration. So far this month, we've had anniversary shout outs, we've had some prize opportunities, and the event that's gonna wrap up our anniversary celebration this month is a platform party. CEO the Maxwell touched on how at this platform party, we're gonna use this as an all hands on deck opportunity to let the customers know about our temporary service modifications. So this will be a great opportunity. It's 4 to 5:30 p.m. at the ITC. And we also wanted to just mention another part of our celebration was the Wellness Center opening. This was a huge event. We had a lot of vendors. We had a lot of our operators come out and they really expressed how they enjoyed the event and how they're happy to have the Wellness Center opening. We just want to give a shout out to the HR department who helped get this together, as well as our Anthem representative who also helped to get some vendors in as well.
Or a reminder on this too, obviously our key focus on this is how we care for our employees. And how we want to afford everyone these opportunities for wellness that are personally valuable, personally important to them. It is a part of our care. In addition to that, I want to also underscore that this is part of our financial strategy. We know that one of the things we've done this year is take a really careful evaluation in risk management, looking at our insurance products, our liability products, and so forth. And everything that we do like this not only benefits our employees and their health and wellness, it also helps benefit CAT's bottom line. So I just wanted to reiterate that. Encourage you all to take go down the hall and visit the wellness center.
I have a question. I'm sorry. With respect to our engagement, is she still there?
Yes, ma'am. I'm here.
Oh, hey, do we use Google Analytics to measure the engagement?
We do Google and we do Apple Analytics. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so we know how many and how often and whether or not it's the repeat people. I'm wondering how many new people are engaging.
Yes, ma'am. We should be able to determine that. We just have to look at the numbers. That's all.
I think we haven't done that level of analysis yet, Director Odell, but appreciate your suggestion in that regard, and we will bring that forward at next month's meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's all I have under the executive director's report. You also have reports behind that tab in your book with regard to reports from Mr. Vacker as well as from Squire Pat Boggs. I want to take a moment to thank them again for the reports today. And again, stress the importance of our legislative agenda and socializing that in the upcoming month with our partners here locally so that we come forward with a really consolidated, the strongest possible approach to the upcoming General Assembly session. With that,
I got a quick question.
Yes.
This very interesting slide is included in the board packet about the program before for how we're doing the service alerts. So how do you decide what becomes tested out?
So it's a variety of decisions that are made. Whether that's we usually try to do any press release that we're giving out because not everybody goes to our website, right? So we try to help you there. Anytime that there's a bus that is either not going to run or more than a 30-hour delay, try to push that out as well. It's just
30 minutes.
30, I'm sorry, 30 minutes, not 30 hours. Pray me to look there. But it just depends on the high importance, so try to keep them engaged as much.
But typically, if we're doing bus delays, bus accidents, anything that would affect our passengers in a subsequent way, and then making sure that our news is being pushed out there so that we're, as you said, we're sort of linking people over to all the information.
It seems that me that, I know I've just personally had two situations, Route 14 and Route 10, with delays. So I was just trying to figure out like how does that look? Obviously, you want to protect people all day long.
Right.
But
Do you have the dates on those two things? If you do, can we get them from the afternoon?
yes.
And then we can check those two.
Figure out. Yes, yeah,
I'll check them. We'll get with you after the meeting on those two.
again, I didn't.
And our next update is service delivery and safety update with Dr. Mead.
Too many replies that to Mr. Dumas at this time. Next time I will have all my report.
Good morning, again, everyone. Your service delivery packet, information is included in your packet, but I'd like to give you an update on the highlights for our service delivery at this time. Our on-time performance for our fixed route is about the same as it was last month for our fixed route services. Next slide. Our ridership for the comparison, our ridership is down compared to last month. This time for the on the forward pack. Next slide. Paratransit on-time performance, it is up compared to this time last month. And your top 5 performers for the month of September were Charles Robinson, Elizabeth Bright, Denise Clark, Donald Bryan, and Nicole Lloyd, all above 90%. Next slide, please. Paratransit ridership, it is down compared to last month. Next slide. Our CAT mobility reservation, it is also slightly down compared, well, no, yeah, it is down compared to, no, it's up. I apologize, it's up slightly compared to last month. Next slide. Our water ferry ridership is about the same as it was last month. Next slide. And our maintenance for the month of September, it is above the target of 12,000 miles. Well, it means distance between vehicle failures. Next slide. Bunch of slides. Our mobility call center, our wait time is still above our targeted. Again, this is related to the increased call on our service change, as well as just demands on our service reliability, which we certainly are looking forward to our service change on next Monday, October 31st. And we fully anticipate that these numbers will begin to go down and to go below our targeted 60-second wait time. Next slide. Our incoming calls for the month is increased from last month. And again, this is due to many different inquiries, primarily with the upcoming fall service change. Next slide. Our safety report for accident incidents and occurrence. For the month of September, our preventable accident, it was 4. Our non-preventable accident was 4. Our preventable incident 0. Our non-preventable incident 8. And our preventable occurrence 0. Non-preventable occurrence 0. This is the combination between fixed route and our paratransit, which was included defined in that. But it's repeat. The top is while fixed route, and then the below numbers are for our paratransit service. Next slide. And additional information on safety update, just to give information on the events accident and incident occurrence. This is some of the definition on those particular items. If you have any questions, we're certainly glad to discuss that. And that completes our report for our service delivery for this month.
Also offer a brief report on planning and infrastructure development. I've asked Ashley Lewis to visit us. Good morning. For planning and infrastructure development, the month of September. Thank you. For cat ridership in September, our ridership numbers were lower than the prior month of August, but statistically held steady, and our passenger by hour by route category. Significant increases in ridership from September of 2021 to today, with 68.1% on Route 25, Martin Luther King Westlake, a 52.7% passenger per hour increase on the Route 31 Skidaway, and a 60.4% increase on the Route 3D Augusta. This is where, starting in the fall of last year through the fall now of this year, we have had a very large statistical gain in ridership. And you continue to see where our passengers per hour may have held in an average of what you've seen for the last quarter, but we have seen quite significant changes year over year. Cap planning items for the month of September include the fall temporary service modifications. These will have a start date of October 31st, next Monday. We are excited to finalize the Garden City intergovernmental agreement for 6 new bus stops on State Route 21 for the Route 3 West Chatham. We have kicked off our CAT Master Transit Comprehensive Plan and Implementation Strategies, as well as our TDP COA Operations Analysis. We are currently compiling data for the COA, and that is a major component of our fall temporary modifications. We also earlier in the month spoke at committee for the core MPO 2050 metropolitan planning. Our core MPO is also at the same time undergoing the regional long-term 20-year update in our transportation planning process. So it is a very good time to be talking about planning and transit and planning and transportation for our roads and bridges for the Chatham County area, and as well as our regional area. The 2050 metropolitan planning is designed for these long-term outlooks of where we see our economy growing over time. Next slide, please. Contained in your full packet is a detailed Garden City report compiled by planning staff. This report details existing ridership and population, which helped finalize the State Route 21 Garden City IGA agreement. We will continue to work with Garden City over the next year to implement the bus stops that are missing in the corridor between sections of our special tax district. And we'll continue to work with Garden City moving forward for other areas of Garden City in a phased implementation as we work through our master transit plan. Next one. Also attached to your board packet are contained recent updates for the Coastal Region Metropolitan Organization, the core MPO, for our Chatham area transit funding tables. These tables are our federal funds as well as state block grant funds that we utilize across the board in our capital projects and our ferry program. We expect to update these tables again in December of 2022 in conjunction to CAT Finance with our ferry funding. One thing we will be asking for is about once to twice a year, the core MPO will update all of the tables and combine all of the amendments to their documentation. And we'll be looking for those updated documents reasonably soon. The Master Transit Plan kickoff occurred this past week, 2 weeks ago on the 15th. It was well attended at Jenkins High School with a wide variety of citizens, staff, and riders to the event. So we had great public comment, a variety of questions, both for our future financial outlook to the master transit plan, as well as our current service changes with our fall modifications. And to conclude, for CAT planning, infrastructure development, we have started a survey for the fall, which is part of our TDP COA. It also will help us with our master transit plan comprehensive process. These are 26 questions that will be distributed widely about transit service, our ridership demographics, and overall satisfaction with Chatham Area Transit. The QR code that you see in your packet presentation on the screen is live today, and we hope everyone will take time to utilize the survey. This survey is important for us as we undergo our TDP, as it is part of our agency requirements to have a sort of, I would say, a demographic survey of our ridership so that we know exactly who our riders are. We know what routes they are taking, where they are trying to go, and then we can utilize that information in our planning process. That will conclude everything for us today. If anyone has any questions.
I would add one other thing to that report as well. One of the things, Ashley did a great job of overviewing all of those activities related to the COA, TDP, and the master transit plan. One of the things we did yesterday in working with the consultant team that's performing all of those tasks for us is we talked about, after that initial public meeting at Jenkins High School, very well attended, and it's great. One of those opportunities for people to choose to come out and participate is that some of the next very targeted segments of public outreach that the team is going to be performing is going to be in two particular market segments. One is going to be in those parts of our service area that may not have had as much opportunity for input over time, may have some of the greatest service needs, but their voices may not always be as routinely heard. And then on sort of a different market segment is a much more robust outreach to major employers and the business community to find out if they don't use transit for their employees, what are the reasons why not, and if they do, how's it working, but really starting to grow, especially around major employers and major employment nodes. And this also gives us a chance to look at that more regional aspect that we mentioned earlier, and that Mr. Backer mentioned earlier. That's also a key part of our legislative agenda. This is also another one of those threads that weaves through our financial strategy for growing CAT and the reliability of our financial resources. So those two market segments, the major employers and then areas that might not have had the opportunity for a stronger voice in the process, are going to be real focus areas with those efforts moving forward in the next few weeks. Any questions? We'll turn it over to Ms. Cutter for our last unit update with financial services.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to be giving you highlights of the finances and an overview from the resources area. As we talked about on last week, our actual versus our budget, we are on target for the month of September. The expenses, of course, exceeded the revenue. If you look at the graph, actual expenses were $411,612 of revenues, and that's particularly tied to the collection of the transit tax. So don't let that frighten you. Transit tax revenue will be coming in at a higher rate that will significantly offset this picture. If you look at the year-to-date bar, you'll still see that year-to-date revenue is slightly above year-to-date expenditures. Our revenue by category, grants made up 40% of the revenue for the month, followed by our paratransit revenue. Our expenses by category, it follows the trend. Our most valuable resource, our employees, and the benefits that we afford them makes up the primary expense for the month. Our cash receipts are listed as printed. Calling your attention to the special district tax. As I mentioned, collections are down because people, the billing was in April. This is kind of the low period for tax collections. It should peak next month. Residents receive their tax bills, and hopefully those tax payments will be coming in the month of November and December. Our actual versus budget comparison. This is just a highlight to actually explain where we are. If you look at the charts, it tells you the categories that are below budget and the categories that are above budget.
Ms. Cutter,
Yes.
on that particular slide, I think the 90% below the transit tax was the explanation you gave about taxes coming in and when they come in.
You're correct, Dr. Robinson. You're absolutely correct. Once those tax revenues come up, that number will change significantly.
And when we talk about, because I looked at this chart now, and when we talk about the grant below 3%, does that mean that we anticipate a certain amount and what we got is 3% lower than what we anticipated?
Yes, typically what we do is we spread the grant out equally, 12-month period. And the drawdowns are based on, with the operating grants, are based on actual expenditures that we submit drawdowns for. So there may be a slight difference there.
And then on the benefits for the fixed route, when you say it's above 30%, I guess what I'm asking is if we have low employees, why are our benefits higher? Did something go up?
Well, it's because when our brokers submit a cost to us as to what that insurance coverage is going to be for the year, that's what it is for the year. It's based on the total number of positions that CAT has. Mm-hmm. And even though we may have vacancies, we procure insurance for 310 employees. The brokers the proposers submit an amount to pay for the insurance, and that's what it is.
Okay. All right, those are my questions on that particular slide.
Now this slide, in the past, we used a line graph to show this, and it was updated really just by showing the actual, but I thought it would be better information to show you the actual in comparison to what was projected. In the month of September, the projected was slightly higher than what actually came in. Excuse me, at the end of the month, the cash balance at the end of the month was slightly lower than what we projected at the end of the month. Our operating reserves that the board voted on today, if you recall, CAT adopted a policy of 3 months of the operating budget that we should have in the reserve fund at all times, which totals $7.5 million. Our current balance as of today is a little over $4 million with the current yield of 2.36%. The board just approved the $3.8 million transfer once those dollars are drawn down, which will meet our fund balance goals. What's new with Munis reporting? We will be in training for a new budget module upgrade during the month of November. This should really make us even more efficient with our budget preparation and our budget maintenance process. Our financial audit has been completed. Representation from Malden and Jenkins will be presenting their findings before the board at the November meeting. Union negotiations will begin early next month. We were very successful with our request for proposals for on-call services. This is really going to help us to move grants forward and not delay them because of experts guidance that we will need. The services are already in place and we will not have the delays of issuing requests for proposals at the last minute. This is very good to help us with capital planning and managing our grant process. We expect the bids on the new ferry boats to be in on October 31st. Our vacancies by department is highlighted on the slide. Operators is top priority. Fixed route, we have 25 full-time vacancies and 8 part-time at the time of this report. In paratransit, we have 20 vacancies for full-time drivers and 4 for part-time. Overall, the organization has a total of 90 vacancies out of a labor pool of 310. Our stats for the month of September, operator application status. We received 3 applications for full-time operators, 1 for part-time, 2 for paratransit operators, and we had 17 other applications to come in for other position vacancies. Training schedule for operators is scheduled to begin on October 31st. Our recruiting efforts, the Georgia Department of Labor has been valuable to us in providing recruitment support. We have several activities planned in October. Some have already occurred, partnering with Step Up Savannah, Fort Stewart, on-site job fair scheduled for the 28th, and with the military, both at Fort Stewart and Hunter. Job offers that were made in September: human resources generalist, procurement specialist, paratransit driver, deckhand, human resources manager, and our chief operating officer, all on board. We are really trying to get better in training our managers on different rules and regulations as it relates to human resources. In the month of October, we had planning on Family Medical Leave Act. All of this planning began in the month of September. This training will be held quarterly. In the month of October, we held training on the 11th and 13th of October. This concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Ms. Cutter, I do have one. If you can go back to the slide, October application status for September 2022.
Yes.
If my math is correct, you had 17 applicants that applied, and you had a percentage eligible, which puts us at approximately about 8 of those people being eligible. Is that correct?
Correct.
So those 8 that's eligible, where are they now in the process?
Pending background checks or awaiting interviews.
And the other 9 or so, they just, what criteria did they not meet?
They did not meet the qualifications of the job that they applied for.
Gotcha. Okay. That was my only question.
Thank you. Appreciate all the great questions, and I'm gonna turn it back over to executive session.
Thanks. Thanks to Ms. Bell for this update. Appreciate it. Next, we'd like to take a motion and second to join the litigation and settlement claim matter.
Session.
Executive session.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and I'll do a roll call vote. Director Emister,
Yes.
Director Stone. Director Stone,
Yes.
thank you. Director Odell,
Yes.
Director Adams,
Yes.
Director Lockett,
Yes.
Director Robinson,
Yes.
Director Leggett,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Chairman Cody.
Yes.
Chairman, motion passed to go into executive session. Thank you.
Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, that's exciting. What is that?
Are we supposed to get out of here into another room?
I don't see the other room.
I don't either.
Oh, maybe it's not our turn.
So are we taking a break or something, or?
Beverly?
I'm in the same.
Was your first, what, week?
2 weeks.
Very excited, very excited.
Can somebody tell Beverly we can't get in the room?
Okay, yes, ma'am. I'm coming back in the room right now to let you in the room.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah.
I'm gonna brag about all. You can't use that. I'm 5 now.
Yeah.
joined the meeting.